who that is. Cool. Okay, I will just give a minute to allow some people join the room. So we'll be starting by 11:05. Thanks for registering and joining today. Just to introduce myself, my name is Adlet. I'm part of the events team at the Elevation Church London and excited to have you guys on today's session. So yeah, it's 11:05. I can see someone's hand is raised up. Okay. You can just drop a note if you have any questions and we'll be responding to you. Okay. Or unable to chat. I'll make a note of that. Okay, so I'll start with an opening prayer and then hand it over to Ife, who will be the anchor for today's session. In Jesus' name, Father, Lord in heaven, King of Kings, we thank you for today. We thank you for the opportunity to be able to be part of this session. As we learn, listen to Ife speak to us and go through every segment of how to build a business in the UK, we pray for the grace and the understanding to implement it in our different paths and in every aspect of our life, Lord, in Jesus' name. So, just to introduce Ife, she's a dear friend, but also someone with a wealth of experience in helping people build businesses in the UK. Just to read her bio, she is a leading venture coach with almost a decade of experience as a strategy and operations leader, working with global organizations, including Flutterwave, which is a very popular name, Global Ventures in Dubai, the Office of the Vice President of Nigeria, and Amazon Web Services here in London. She's currently the founder, chief strategist at SWIF, a leading startup advisory firm supporting founders, startups, accelerators, and VCs across the EMEA region on strategic decisions, planning and implementation, venture coaching, and speaking and facilitating expert sessions for leaders. So I pray that this session today will be a blessing to everyone. And this is where I hand over to Ife.
Thank you so much, Adler. Thank you so much. Just checking that everyone can also see me and hear me very clearly. Please let me know in the chat that I'm good to go. Let me know.
You can see you. I can. I don't know if the rest can.
Adler, I think you're my cue. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again for having me. The Elevation Church London is my church family. So coming on board to do this was something I was super excited to do. I'm very humbled to be here. So major thanks to our resident pastor, Pastor TJ, for having me here, and to the entire events team as well. Adler spearheading that. Thank you so much for bringing me on board. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ifeoluwa Ogunbufunmi. I would be taking you through a few of my, practical steps, thoughts, and more importantly, things I've done to help, founders like yourselves or aspiring founders like yourselves start companies here in England where I live. So welcome to the Business Edge. This is a session brought to you by the Elevation Church London, and the specific aspects of what we'll be talking about today are, highlighting the basics of starting a business in the UK, funding and grants, resources and options, networking, and also a lot of practical resources. So what I would say is, please focus all your attention on listening. Right after my session, I will pop the link to the entire slide and everyone can access it. So you don't need to sweat it with taking screenshots or taking notes. You will have access to the slides because a lot of links here are clickable. So I'm going to share that with you. So just listen and feel free to also ask questions. I'll be more than happy to, respond to as many as I can. So yeah, I'm just going to do a quick intro on who I am. I think I recognize a couple of faces or a couple of names here, but many of which I don't. So it's exciting to talk to people that I haven't met before or interacted with. And this is me in a very quick nutshell. I'm the founder and chief strategist at SWIF, and SWIF is a leading startup advisory firm. I'm based here in London, but I work with clients across Europe, Middle East, Africa, and North America. And essentially what I do is support founders and aspiring founders with everything from ideation all the way to implementation of business ideas. So think ideation, strategy, product market fit, applying for startup accelerator programs, go to market strategy, launching and scaling your company. Right? That's essentially what my company does. I have an MBA from the University of Oxford, and I'm also a UK Global Talent endorsed by the UK government as an exceptional leader in the area of tech strategy. I'm also a McKinsey Next Generation Women Leader, and with my company SWIF, I've worked with over 150 founders across 16 countries. So it's a growing list of people that I work with on a daily basis, and I'm thankful to God that I always tell people I don't know where all these people come from, but God is showing me so much love and mercy, and I'm too grateful for that. A couple of organizations that I've been associated with in terms of my work experience. I've worked with AWS in London, which is the cloud services company for Amazon, Flutterwave, which is one of Africa's unicorns in terms of fintech. Also worked with the Vice President's office in Nigeria. So I worked with Professor Yemi Oshibadjo, and Global Ventures, which is a leading venture capital firm in Dubai. I work with a lot of startup accelerators that help early stage founders really get off the ground. A couple of them are Barclays Eagle Labs, TechScaler, which is won by the government of Scotland, Lagos Innovates in Nigeria, Founder Vine here in England, Women Tech EU across Europe, and then Leap, which is one of the leading programs and largest conference in the Middle East, specifically in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so that's me in a quick nutshell. Um, Now let's dive in. I'm going to have a couple of questions for everyone on this call, but I have a first question, right? And I would really like to get feedback from everyone in the chat. It's not so many people on the call yet, so let's try and just pop our answers in the chat, right? Question for you. My first question, I think I have a series of three or four questions. But the very first one is, what is the one thing, just one thing, not two things, one thing that your existing business or your aspiring business needs right now, right? So I'm saying existing business, if you're already a founder and you've set up a company that is doing certain kinds of work, what is the one thing you believe your business needs right now? If you're an aspiring founder, what is the one thing that this business you're looking to set up? What is the one thing you think it needs, right? It can be guidance, direction, funding, the right people. It can be anything, right? But I just want to get your feedback in the chat, please. What is the one thing you think your business needs right now? So I'm looking through the chat. Please just pop it in. I would love, love, love to hear from everyone. Let me just make sure I'm looking at the right. Okay. Okay. Okay, so Adlet says people pushing the vision. I like that. So the right talent, people who understand what you're doing and can come on board and help you push this vision that you have. So thank you so much for that, Adlet. Anybody else? What is the one thing your business or okay? So DL Holder, is that your name? Please let me know if that's your name. I want to get your name correctly. Says more awareness. Io says customers. I like that. Okay, Dell. Okay, thank you. Oh, Dell, thank you so much for clarifying. Miriam says awareness. Okay, I like a lot of awareness. So essentially, getting the product in front of the people who are willing and able to buy from you, right? And having more people know about what you're doing. Okay, so that's a couple of people that have responded. Thank you so much, guys, for the feedback. And you're going to see why over time I'm asking about that, because the reality is sometimes what you think your business needs right now is not exactly what is top priority. There might be a couple of other things that your business needs, and it's good to just sort of know which should come first, essentially, right? And that takes us to the next thing I want to discuss. Setting up a business in the UK, first things first, right? There's a lot of things that you should be mindful of, right? But there are a couple of things you need to keep top of mind, which you need to focus on, right? In the very, very initial early stages. And we're going to just dive deep into a couple of those things. The first thing I want to ask is, I want you to ask yourselves. I'm going to be asking you guys a lot of questions, and I want you to just do a bit of reflection as we're going along. The first question is, are you offering a product or a service? Right. So in my case, I offer a service. I run an startup advisory firm. I don't have an actual product that people are buying. The product is one-on-one coaching time with me, right? I'm offering a service. A lot of founders are offering products, from fintech products to health tech products to anything, they're offering products. So it really depends. Are you offering a product? Are you offering a service? Right. And one thing I like to tell founders is the reality is whatever it is that you're doing today, there is a version that exists, right? It might not be exactly what you're thinking of. It might not be, the same process that you're thinking about, but there is a version of that solution in some shape or form. And what is very important here is understanding what version of your solution exists today, right? Because that then helps you understand how can you differentiate yourself, right? So for the people on this call who mentioned awareness being something that their businesses need, awareness is usually linked to how different is your product from what exists today, right? Very, very big question. What is the version of your product or solution that exists today, right? Understanding that, really understanding that, because it's a version that people are paying for, right? And then the next step is how different is your version, right? What is that? And I tell founders, no matter how little, differentiation is everything. You can't come and give us the exact same thing that someone else is giving us. Remember that you're new, you're entering the market fresh. So I've already been, getting services from someone else or buying a product from someone else. I need to be able to be convinced that your product is something that I need to jump on, right? And that's where that differentiation comes in. And I say it all the time, no matter how little, the differentiation is extremely important. Next question here is, are you solving a painful problem? So I see a lot of founders who like to solve fancy problems. That's not really going to get you far. That's the truth, right? In a world where things are moving much quicker than we expected, things are changing much, much faster than we anticipated. You cannot be solving cute problems or problems that are for a few people, right? Or problems that are not aching, not painful problems for customers, right? So are you solving a painful problem, right? And I've said here you need to obsess about the solution. Sorry, obsess about this is actually, I was supposed to switch it. Obsess about the problem. My mistake there. Obsess about the problem, not the solution. And I'm saying that because when you think of solutions, solutions can be multiple. There are multiple people that have created solutions to multiple things, right? They've created solutions to one problem. If you think of the solution of maybe sending money home, for example, a lot of us on this call are immigrants. So we came from, some other country, largely, I can see largely Nigerian names. So let's assume a lot of people came from Nigeria. A number of us on this call are sending money back home to Nigeria. That act of sending money back home, which is remittance, there's so many providers of remittance solutions, right? So essentially, that problem of sending money back home, which is the painful problem, there's now multiple solutions, which is why you must obsess about the problem itself, right? And think through what is your own specific solution, because so many other people will come up with different kinds of solutions to the same one problem, right? Next thing is your product or service a painkiller or a vitamin? I'd like to give a very practical example. It's on my table because I have my some of the medications I take care. But let me know if you can see my screen. This is my vitamin D. I mean, I live in England. The sun is barely rearing its head, right? Vitamin D is extremely important, right? And I don't know if anybody can see this, but I'm showcasing my vitamin, right? But I don't know a lot of people who take vitamins, and that's the truth, because it is an option. If you don't take it, it takes a while before your body starts to reflect that, you're lacking certain vitamins, right? Unlike when you have a painful problem and you need whether painkillers, medication immediately to get that problem to subside, right? And I'm giving this, practical example because I want you to think about the problem you're solving and think about how you want to make sure that the solution you're providing is a painkiller and it's not a vitamin. It's not optional, right? When people are cutting budgets, right, and deciding what needs to go and what needs to stay, you want to make sure that your product or service is one of those things that they're not cutting out, right? Because it's a painkiller and it's not an option, right? Make your product a necessity and not a nice to have, right? I'm going through this so that we just lay a good foundation, and then we're going to go into some practical resources shortly after. Another question that I like to ask early stage founders is, have you tested your product or service with an initial set of users, right? A lot of people fall into that trap of what we call one more feature. So imagine you're building a tech solution. A lot of founders will tell you, oh, I just need to add one more feature to this. I need to just add one more thing. And time is just wasting, right? Get the product to a minimum, which is why they call it an MVP, a minimum viable product phase, right? Where it is the minimum version of what you're trying to create, and put it in the hands of people who are going to test it and get feedback, right? It's not as difficult as people make it seem. There's multiple group chats you're on, multiple communities, multiple people you meet all the time. Get them to test out what you're building, because you need that feedback. You need to move out of your head and actually give it to people who are going to test it and tell you oh, I like this, or I like this part of it. Or what if you switched it up a bit? If only your solution did XYZ. And that's feedback that you have to go back and, iterate and implement and ensure that your product comes back better and stronger, right? And I've said here that customer validation is a must, because without them, you have no business, right? So getting people to actually test it out in the initial stage is extremely important. And I've also said, don't create a solution and then start looking for the problem, which goes back to, are you solving a painful problem? Make sure that there is a painful problem first, and then you create a solution, and not the other way around. I've also said, figure out what people want and sell it back to them as what they need. A lot of times, with the way the world is going, inflation here and there, high interest rates, just so many painful problems, people are making critical decisions on what they spend their money on, right? So you can't be selling things that people are still, yeah, do I need this? Nah, I'm not sure. You want to make sure that it's something that people realize that is a clear need for them, right? And I've said here that your customers are smart. Your customers are me, they're you, they're people like you, they're people on this call, so they're smart people, right? Remember that and make sure that your product is a clear solution, right? And it's not just some mixed up version of what other people are doing, right? And I've said here, test, learn, and iterate based on what you get back from your initial testers, your initial users, customer feedback. There's no going around that. It's extremely important. Um, and I think just wrapping up this section, I want to talk about your target audience. So these customers that we keep talking about, right? You want to find out, and that's part of the testing phase. How much are they willing to pay for what you're selling, right? How much are they able to pay? Willingness to pay and ability to pay are two different things, right? They might be willing to pay £20, but when they do the actual calculation, they're only able to pay £10, right? So understanding how much they are willing and able to pay for what you're selling is extremely important. Understanding how the taste of customers are changing now. We're seeing things like, more interest in sustainably produced goods and services, right? Where people are now more conscious of the environment, particularly in this part of the world. So understanding that the taste of your customers are constantly changing. Also take time to attain what we call product market fit. And explaining that is very simple. Product market fit is where what you're selling, your product gets to a phase where your customers are constantly buying and now telling other people about it, right? That's when you're literally, it's now less about your marketing effort and just more about the people who've come on board as customers. So you know that your product has a clear market and they fit together like a glove. That's it. The fact that you have a product that people are constantly telling other people about, and it's a spiral case of purchases and purchases and purchases. That's it, in very clear and simple terms. You want to get to that point where there's a product market fit. And I've said here finally that as a founder, and I tell this to every single founder that I work with, if you're in your early stages, you need to be ready to sell. You need to be ready to sell your own product, right? When you listen to a lot of the successful founders, and I remember listening to Brian Chesky of Airbnb talking about how in the early days of Airbnb, he and his co-founder would literally go to the homes of people who were putting their houses on Airbnb, knocking on doors, right? Saying, do you need us to take pictures of your home so we can put on the platform? A lot of times now, a lot of founders don't want to do the dirty work. You want to outsource, and outsourcing means you're spending money, right? Money you can be conserving for more important things. You need to be ready to get in there and do the work, right? Do the work, speak to people about what you're doing, what you're selling, what you're providing. Open your mouth and talk to people, right? Before you then go and start hiring sales teams and outsourcing people, just before you do all of that, make sure that you have maximized yourself and your network, right? Before you then start having to pay for additional things. Like I said here, conserve your runway. I'm also making sure that I'm still good on time. But let me know if this is making sense to anyone. I like to make sure that I'm not talking to myself. Let me know if it's clear to you guys. Let me know if this is helpful. I'm going to keep going on the slide, but I'd really love feedback in the comments. Let me know if it's making sense, just write making sense, or I'm following anything like that, just to know that I still have people here. Thank you. So now it's time for practical resources, and I'm very I think one thing I've done here with these slides, okay, I see 4 chats. Please let me hop on to make sure. Okay, so makes sense. I can see thumbs up, making sense. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Okay, practical resources. And I put this together based on the things that I've done, right? And also the things that I've seen work, right? And like I said, right after this, I'll pop the link to this entire presentation and you guys can have it for yourselves, right? Let's start from the company registration itself. And I know this is something that people are very keen on, right? The first thing I said here is you need to understand the limits of your existing visa, right? There's some visa types that people are on that do not allow you to open up companies. You need to know that, right? So I would never be the first person to say, yeah, just go and open a company. We're not back home in Nigeria where, I remember someone telling me, do you know how many companies I've opened? Back there, I said, I'm not sure that that's something to be proud of, but you can't just do that here. You can't just open a company, without thinking through. Thank you so much, making a lot of sense. Thumbs up. Thank you guys. You have to think through, right? What does your visa type allow? What does it not allow? You don't want to get into any issues or any trouble. In my case, I'm able to open a company because I switched my visa type. Now I'm a UK global talent, and that's one of the things that I can do: start my own company, work for myself, right? So please understand the limitations of your visa, and the only way to do this is to do your research, ask questions, right? Where you need an expert, don't shy away from it. One thing people don't realize is a lot of experts would have an initial conversation with you for free before you even go into their paid versions, right? And I'm very big on maximizing the free things first before I start paying for things. So tax experts, accounting experts will say, "Oh, you can have a 30 minutes conversation with us for free. Come with all your questions." And in 30 minutes, you can ask them as many questions as you have, right? Just to know what you can or cannot do. So please understand that very first part. What are the limitations of the kind of visa that you're on? What are you allowed to do and what are you not allowed to do, right? But opening up a company with the registration agency here is the UK Companies House. And I've put the link in there as well. Now it costs £50. I was even surprised because I paid way less than this. And this was just earlier this year, but this is information I got straight from the website, right? And it takes about 24 to 72 hours to get your certificate of incorporation. I remember getting mine in February and I was like, oh my God, this thing is really live. This is really happening. And it was such a beautiful, exciting time for me. I'm not gonna lie. So yes, this is the link to get started. All the information is on there. I say this to people all the time. The gov.uk website is one of the richest websites I've seen in terms of information. The information is simplified, it is clear. A lot of times, I mean, sometimes you might need to talk to experts to get clarity, but I find personally that they dump a lot of info there, right? At least that in the initial stages, you can go there, get information, and then ask more questions, right? So research is essentially what I'm preaching here. Research, 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 right? There are also other platforms like Tide, and I remember when I was trying to register my company, I tried Tide first, but they didn't, for some reason, when I put the kind of business I was running, they came back to me and said, sorry, we're unable to register your company, blah, blah, blah. I was like, that's all well and good. Oh, I'm happy to move on. Right. But I've seen that Tide is a very great one. They help you. The good thing about them is it's an all-in-one package where you register your business and they get it registered for you. You can also open company accounts with them. They also have a lot of business tools like accounting software, invoicing, expense management, and they give you all of that on one platform. I think they have a subscription fee model, right? So it's a good one to look into as well, just because it's all encompassing, right? You can also register as either a limited company, which is just what I've spoken about, or as a sole trader. So I know people who work for themselves but don't want to register companies. You can register as a sole trader. You can be self-employed. Again, there's a registration required because, of course, you have to remit your taxes and things like that. You can register as self-employed or a freelancer, right? So this is someone, imagine that you contract for multiple companies. This is also a good way to get yourself registered. And just having, I'm very big on having all your books in order, right? I've seen people fall into so many kinds of unneeded issues just because they didn't get themselves in order, and they were not compliant. I do not advise, it's one of the first things I talk about. Get yourself in order administratively, please. Don't joke with it, right? It's extremely important. There are also other platforms that, for a lot of people here, where you live, your current, buildings, your current flats, don't allow you to use your current locations or addresses as a business address as well, right? I know that a lot of people have those kind of limitations in their tenancy agreements. So there are companies like First Formations, Rapid Formations, Company Wizard that help you register your company and also give you a corresponding address, right? So you can look into that as well if you have those kind of clauses in your tenancy agreement, right? That's just something I thought to add. When it comes to tax and regulatory, again, one of the very first things I would say here, well, it's the second thing I put here: speak to an expert. I remember when I started my company in January, I think like 2 weeks after, right? So it was when I got the company registered with Companies House. The good thing is a lot of these companies, that provide services to new companies, they've gone into an agreement with Companies House. So Companies House, literally, once you get your correspondence that, oh, your business is registered, you start getting bombarded with, correspondence and emails from companies like Tide, like tax firms, accounting firms. And like I said, a lot of them offer initial services for free. The first call is free, 30 minutes. So I did have a call with a tax expert to understand that, oh, I've just started this new company. I'm keen to know what my tax responsibilities are. And then I found out that for the kind of company that I set up, I don't have any tax responsibilities until a year after the company is set up. And even a year after, I have a 6 month window to then start filing taxes, right? And even that, there's a threshold, right? It's extremely important you speak to an expert, guys. Please, I beg you, don't just wing anything. Don't just mash it all up in there. I would never advise that, right? You would also get notifications about how to register with HMRC for your company. I've said here you will get bombarded. I have a pile of letters from HMRC and co. I read every single thing. Don't even don't outsource reading information like that. Read it yourself, right? I would strongly advise read every single thing, like I said here, to avoid hiccups. I've also said speak to a lawyer. So if you're structuring, I know a lot of people who are structuring businesses, and have said to me, oh, I have a business in Nigeria, I'm moving to the UK. Is there where I can create it, make it a subsidiary? Can I make one a parent company? All of that information, speak to a tax expert, speak to someone who understands. That is literally what they do. Don't try and just mix it up in there, right? So just be mindful of that. Another thing I've said here is I literally had someone call me about this 2 days ago, and she said, "Oh, I'm trying to open the business account, but I need a bank that offers a couple more services than just a regular account." She wanted a bank that has like startup accelerator programs and things like that, where she can apply for grants and funding and things like that. So I have a business account with Monzo. I was happy with that. It was quick. It was boom, boom, boom. In like a couple of minutes, it was done. By the next day, I got my banking card and things like that. Revolut also does that. But if you're looking for, because again, I run a service-based company, but if you're looking to then get into like accelerator programs and things like that, like I said, a lot of mainstream banks offer those kinds of things. NatWest, I know NatWest has an accelerator. Barclays has the Barclays Eagle Labs. Lloyd's also has a big banking setup for women, right? So these are some things to look into as well. And then another thing that I want to put out here is something that I even found out like a couple of months ago, because a letter just showed up at my door, and it is from the Information Commissioner's office, right? So if you're running a business that works a lot with people's data, like people's information, like their email addresses and things like that and phone numbers, because you've registered your company, all the supporting agencies would also be notified, right? And so there's an annual data protection fee that you have to pay. It was about 40, no, I think I put 50, it was about £40. And then if you do a direct debit, it was about £35, right? And you're paying that every year. So please be mindful of all these things here and there that pop up. Ask questions where you're not clear, right? But like I said, you want to be on the good side of the law. Another thing I want to talk about here is I'm just mindful of time. Adler, please, if I'm running over time, just please let me know in the chat, right? Another thing I want to talk about is, thank you so much, is website builders. And I get this all the time when I tell people that I built my website myself. A lot of people never believe, and it's fine because, again, I should also add that my background is law. I'm a lawyer. As a lot of people forget that I'm a lawyer, but it's fine. So naturally, I don't know many lawyers that go about building websites, right? But I keep saying the world is now so small in terms of how easy it is to access information that there's no reason why you should not be doing a lot of things right now yourself and testing things out. Again, I'm also a bit big on conserving, the cash that you have for bigger things. So things like your website, you can build your website yourself. I would recommend you building your website yourself, because there are platforms like Wix.com, GoDaddy.com, Framer.com, and Card.co that literally have some of the most amazing templates I've seen. And in a day or two, you have a website that is ready to go live, right? I used Card.co to build my website because I just wanted to build a one-page website, right? I didn't want it to have multiple sections. And Card.co was fantastic. And then I have to pay an annual fee of I think it was like $19 or something, but nothing too chaotic, right? But I built it myself. and I literally get feedback every day. Oh, I love your website. I think it's amazing. So feel free to check it out. That's the link at the bottom, strategywithifeoluwa.com, right? But I built it myself, essentially. So please thoroughly recommend that you check some of these tools out yourself. I would also like to talk about business tools that I personally use and I've seen, a lot of other people use as well. And I like the go-to business tools. I'm big on Canva. I tell a lot of people who care to listen that Canva is one company I wish I was the one that founded. I love Canva. It saved me a lot of time, a lot of money. It's just amazing. And I use it almost on a daily basis, right? I created my company logo with Canva. I create my graphic designs. Like I said, I do everything myself. I'm very big on, just really even exploring the things that I can do, push yourself really. My graphic designs, my presentations, this presentation was made on Canva, proposals, all of those kind of things. They're amazing templates, and even before you start to pay for the premium versions, the paid versions of a lot of these tools, the free versions are pretty amazing, right? So again, conserve your funds, make sure that you're spending money only where you need to, right? Calendly. Calendly is another tool that I think is life changing and game changing. I use Calendly all the time. That's how people book sessions with me, to have calls with me as founders, right? It helps you with scheduling, it helps with video conferencing, all of those kinds of things. Google Workspace and Zoho, right? I remember when I decided to start my company in January, one of the first things I knew was, okay, I was still thinking, oh, would I outsource building a website to someone else and all of those things? Would I do it myself? I hadn't decided yet in January. One thing I didn't know that I wanted to do was I wanted a corporate email address from day one. I come from the corporate world. I know how well people take you seriously when you have a corporate email versus having at gmail.com or at yahoo.com as a business, right? And Google Workspace and Zoho help you do that. You don't even need a website. So I had a corporate email for like 2 months before I even had a website, right? Because you get on Google Workspace, you make payment for the monthly services. They have different packages, and they give you access to corporate email addresses for you and your teams. You can use their collaboration tools, and it's just amazing. So I think I pay as little as £6 a month, right? Again, I'm mentioning all this cost just because these are practical aspects of it, right? I like to talk about what I'm actually paying for stuff, right? And then you have AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, which are for people who are actually building a lot of tech products. So for your storage, for your computing, and things like that. Then you have social media platforms. Anyone who knows me closely knows that I love LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. It is my go-to platform. I spend a lot of my time there, for specific reasons. I love reading. I love assimilating information about the work that I do. And LinkedIn is one of my go-to places for that, right? I read so much information there, and I just soak in a lot of things from it, right? So think about social media platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, Slack. Slack is also another platform that I love. I'm on multiple Slack channels that I find useful for the kind of work that I do. And also, like I said here, key online communities, right? Anything that would really help you to amplify awareness of your business, right? It's extremely important in the world that we live today. Newsletters, I send out newsletters every week, every 2 weeks, and there's so many platforms that help you do that. I currently use MailChimp, and I even use the free version, right? There are limitations, but I'm like, I don't see the need to increase it yet. That's me, right? Until I find a need to spend more money, I just don't, right? So MailChimp, there's a platform called ConvertKit, there's Beehive, there's Breville. All of these have amazing templates to help you set up newsletters to send out to people, help you, do some calculations about, okay, how many people are opening your newsletters, how many people are reading it, all those kinds of things. These are the platforms for you. And these are not exhaustive lists, right? There's so many other options, right? But these are some of the main ones that I personally use and I've seen that other founders use. AI tools. This is one of my absolute favorite invention of all time, right? I say to people that I wish ChatGPT had taken off while I was still doing my MBA at Oxford. It really took off after I left. I was very unhappy because I remember staying up for 24 hours working on a couple of assessments. My life would have just been a lot more easier, a lot easier than it was, in terms of working on assessments back to back to back, right? But I think AI tools are pretty amazing, just helping us not become lazy, but helping us to enhance the way we work and our productivity and save time, right? ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, guys, leverage these tools as often as you can. Personally, they've simplified my work, they've simplified how quickly I work, and things like that. also CRM platforms. So, for salespeople. So if you're building products where, of course, you're selling to other businesses, selling to customers, there's CRM tools like Salesforce, HubSpot, Zendesk, Zoho, RFs that help you do all of these things. I like RFs because it's a marketing platform that helps you evaluate your competition, right? It helps you understand what your competitors are doing and how best to compete differently with them. So these are amazing tools, guys. Please don't sleep on any of them. Um, and I put here, I know one of the things we want to talk about was networking. And I'm very big on connecting with people meaningfully, right? Building connections, because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the work I've done has come from the amazing connections that I've built over the years. People who have just watched my work journey, my career growth, and who have just, who can vouch for me and the kind of work that I do, right? And now that I'm working as a founder and working with other founders, I found that a lot of the work we do, particularly here in this part of the world in the UK, a lot of it's in the early stages are based off, communities that you're a part of, people who can answer your most ridiculous questions, people who can share amazing opportunities with you that you may never have heard of, right? Those are the kind of communities you need. And I've made a whole laundry list here of communities that I have personally benefited from. I'm a part of London Africa Network. I'm part of Gen F. All these communities are for founders. Some for female founders, some for everyone. But these are amazing, amazing platforms. The Tech Nation one is the platform for people who are on my visa. So the Global Talent Visa, it's a very vibrant group for Nigerian founders and also everyone who's on the visa as well. Community is very active. People will ask you questions at any time of the day, and there will always be someone who responds. I also like to stay connected to my Africa community, just because I'm very big on Nigeria and Africa, and a lot of exciting work is going on there. So I'm not one of those people that moved here and be like, and it was like, oh, that's the end, I'm done. So I'm a part of a community called Women Who Build Africa. It's an amazing community on Slack. Your postgraduate groups, right? A lot of us here probably moved here for school. Don't ignore those group chats just because you finished your masters. A lot of your initial clients and initial users are on those groups, right? And there's so many other groups here that I personally have seen to be super helpful. Like I said, you'll be getting the slides, so don't worry. I know I've been talking a bit, so please let me see again. Is everybody following? Do I still have people's attention? So please let me know if this is making sense, if it's wasting your time. Also let me know. But please feel free to pop in the chat. I want to know that I still have everyone's attention. Thank you. Another thing I put here is a list of startup accelerator programs. Okay, someone has responded. Okay, thank you, Sukomi. Sukomi give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much. Another thing I put here is a list of early stage accelerators. So accelerator programs are programs that would help you get started in terms of some of them provide funding, a lot of them provide mentorship, a lot of them provide opportunities to meet investors, a lot of them provide opportunities to test out your product, and those are some of the initial ways that early stage startups get off the ground, right? And I've put here a long list of accelerators focused in the UK. Some of them I'm a mentor for and a venture coach for. So accelerators like Barclays Black Founders Accelerator, I'm one of their mentors and venture coaches. Same for AWS FinTech Accelerator. Same for TechScaler and FounderVine. These are some of the accelerators. And Startup Bootcamp. I think it's like 5 or 6 of them that I personally work with, right? And they're amazing, amazing resources for early stage founders who are building. They connect you with people who can help you, right? So it's not one of those things where, and they have applications and they're very open about it. Check LinkedIn, check their websites. The information, guys, it is all out there. They're not hiding anything, right? Apply, put your heart in it. And for me, it's always, if it's an opportunity that God wants you to have, nobody can stop it. That's been my story. But there's a part that you have to play. You have to apply. And you can't put in a shabby application. You have to apply and put in a strong application and just trust that God, if this is mine, it will come back successfully, right? So please, again, the slides are coming to you, so you'd have all this information. Another thing here is grants and funding, and I know this is a big one because for a lot of early stage companies, it's how do I even, I'm building a product, I need funds to be able to even pay my third party providers, I need funds to create the product, all of those kind of things. I think a big thing that I love about the UK is how much grants they have to people who are building businesses, right? And what I've done here is I've hyperlinked an amazing compilation that I found that I've shared with a lot of founders. It's a compilation by a company called Considered Capital, and they've done I think it's like 14 pages of grants, accelerators, programs, challenges, and when I say challenges, I mean like competitions, right? That people in the UK can apply for, and you are going to get access to that. I've hyperlinked that here. Um, there's grants for people who are building things in specific areas. There's general grants. There's so many opportunities. A lot of that comes because you're doing your research and you're trying to understand what's available to me. And one of that is, you're going to get this access to this grant documents. Many of those things require detailed applications. And that's where I like to also say, leverage your AI tools to be able to create the best version of what sells your business in a way that these grant applications are looking for, right? So you're going to get access to that as well. Another thing that I like to share with people is listen and read from people who know exactly what they're doing. So I know that thought leadership is now like an overused term in the world we live in today. But I found thought leadership to be pretty phenomenal, right? Because on a daily basis, and I'm not even kidding, on a daily basis, I'm reading from people who have been doing this longer than I have, right? And who can just teach me essentially, and who I can just learn from by the things they put out online, right? And I do a lot of that on LinkedIn. These are some of my top favorite boys and girls in the startup space that are just killing it personally. Some are even Nigerian. So I know Maria personally. She went to Oxford a year before I did. Now Maria runs her own venture capital fund and she's killing it. Right. So a lot of these people, Alex Homose is one of the foremost sales leaders. Now he and his wife, they're based in the US. They run a company called acquisition.com. Every day Alex has some gem or the other to share. These are like just sharing. Someone like Shashant is always talking about AI tools, right? So tools that I'd never heard of and I probably would never have heard of. Once I get on LinkedIn and I check Shashant's page, I'm learning something new. So I'm very big on learning from people who can help me build what I'm building in a better way rather than me failing, essentially, right? So I would say figure out who the thought leaders in your space are and just follow them. Turn on the notifications on their pages, and it was something if you were in church on Sunday, and if you go to Elevation London, it was something that, we listened to Pastor Godman, and it was something he said. He's like, you're building a business or you are building a career in something and you're not following people who have been doing that for a longer period of time. Like, what are you doing? Really and truly, some people have made a lot of mistakes and have just brought all those mistakes together and don't want people to make those exact errors. So please take your time to listen to them, right? And another resource I'm sharing here is a startup guide that I created. I think I created this in the summer and currently it's had maybe over 300 downloads, right? And it's a startup guide for anyone who is building a startup in the early stage, right? And you just need to know, where do I even start from? What do I need to prioritize? This is a startup guide that can help you do that. I've also hyperlinked that in here. Okay. Another question for you guys, because I've been doing a lot of the talking, right? Another question for you guys. When you think about startups generally, feel free to talk about UK startups or even just generally, right? What kind of startups specifically inspire you, right? When it comes to their innovation or the way they engage with their customers, what startups have you seen that you're just like, oh my God, I love what they do. They just get it. I love what they're building. I really want to hear from you guys. Found startups that you've seen that really, you feel like they get it, they know what they're doing, you love how they're building. Feel free to pop it in the chat. I'm going to share some of mine actually. Let me just share my screen. Oops. Yeah. And these are some of mine, right? There's a company called Presti, and it's based in Paris, but they're now expanding. This company started like in February, so it's not even a year old. But I like what they're doing. So they are revolutionizing how furniture retailers are, taking pictures. Prior to Presti, a lot of furniture retailers would, engage interior designers and photographers just because they want to take pictures of the furniture to make it attractive to people like you and me, so we can buy. Now, Presti has said you don't need to spend money on interior designers anymore. You don't need to spend money on photographers anymore, right? We have created an AI solution that really creates the best images of your furniture in seconds, right? Now they tell you that they've cut down the kind of spend you would have previously made by like 90%. I love what they're doing. they've raised about $3.5 million because they're doing something very niche and very revolutionary, right? I love Perplexity. Perplexity is, I like to make this joke. Like the founder of Perplexity was one of the top engineers at OpenAI, which is the parent company of ChatGPT. I like that a lot of these guys, once they see something, they're like, you know what, maybe I go and start my own, right? And they're bold and confident enough and they go and start their own thing. So I love Perplexity, particularly because of their business model. So they're going after top universities in the US, not just even top universities, just as many universities as will come on board. And they're getting the universities to pay for 1 year subscriptions for their students, right? So I imagine the time when I was at Oxford and imagine Perplexity. Okay, thanks, Adlet. I'm going to check that out now. I remember when I was at Oxford, I mean, there was these things were just taking off, right? Imagine Perplexity had come to Oxford and said, pay for, the MBA students for a year. And in my class were almost 400 people, right? There was no way that Oxford would have done that for us. And a year after, I wouldn't have started paying for Perplexity, right? So their business model is a lot of going after universities, getting the universities to pay them so that their students use it and see the value, and then they come on board, right? Post that. So I love what they're doing. Let me just look at what a couple of people have said. Oh, so come says Bamboo Investment. I love Bamboo. I think they're doing really great work. And anyone who doesn't know Bamboo, it's one of those investment tech companies that helps you invest your money in stocks and all of those kinds of things, both shares in Nigeria and abroad. Very, very good stuff that they're doing. Thanks for sharing, Sukomi. Alet said, hug me. They do corporate gifting for large corporates. You can select the budget, get recipients to pick their own choice. I love Hug Me. I didn't even know about them, but I can imagine now that the holidays are coming. A lot of corporates are looking to give gifts, hampers, whatever, to their clients, to their customers, and Hug Me clearly has created a clear solution for that. Thanks, you guys, for sharing. Revolut Monzo, I love what they're doing just because, I mean, when I moved to this country, these were the first 2 accounts I was able to open, right? It took a while before I was able to open an account with the mainstream banks just because of all the things that they require, right? Another thing I like about them is their added services. I do some of my investments with Monzo because Monzo has a Monzo investment platform. But also what I really like is Revolut has this global eSIM thing. And I remember when I went to the US last year, I spent so much money on data. I was so angry. I was like, the data should not be costing this much. What is going on? And then early this year, Revolut announced their global eSIM service where you just pay a certain amount of money. They have different, packages, and you automatically get an eSIM. And once you land in a country, I think they have up to 100 countries actually. Once you land in a country, you just turn it on and boom, you have internet, right? And that's the trade. I mean, I've been to the US twice this year and I've used it and it's been amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Oh, John is sharing a couple free trade Starling. I know Starling. Starling is like Revolut and Monzo. Sweatcoin are a couple. Thank you so much for sharing, guys. And then I think my last one is Luna. Luna is actually a startup that was founded by two Oxford MBA alums. They were at Oxford a year before me. I love what they're doing because they focus on teenagers, right? Particularly teenage girls, helping them understand their body, monitor their periods, help them understand what adolescence is all about. And they're doing fantastic work at this because I didn't quite find anyone that was focused on this group of this market target audience because they're focused on teenage girls, right? So just a couple of mine, that I thought to share with you guys. Let's see now. I want to just hear from you guys again. I'm sure you guys are like, this girl is asking too many questions, but I'm almost done with my slides. I want to hear from you guys. What industries are you guys building startups in? I want to hear what kind of industry you guys are focused on, or what industry are you looking to launch a startup? And just feel free to type in the chat and also let me know what do you think sets you apart from the existing solution, right? So one, tell me the industry you're focused on or looking to focus on, and two, let me know what you think sets you apart. Okay. I would love to read from you guys. And I think this is actually my wrap up slide. There's a couple of things that have come up as big obstacles, when people are looking to launch businesses here in the UK. But I've also come up with, a couple of things that I say are actionable strategies. So things you can actually implement to help you, sort of be able to fight back these obstacles, right? Because as children of God, I tell people that there's no other option but to win, right? I don't see an alternative where I don't win. I don't see an option where I don't succeed at what God has laid in my heart. And I personally believe that my company is something that God gave to me, and God wants me to build it and build it successfully. So I don't see the obstacles because I'm just like, wherever they come up, God will give me a solution to respond to them. And that's what I like to tell people, right? One of those are, things around regulatory stuff, right? There's a lot of complex regulations, there's a lot of policy changes, sometimes you don't even have clarity on them. And some of the best ways to fight back on those is seek expert advice, right? And that's why a lot of people even come to me because they're like, okay, again, not for regulatory, I'm not a regulatory expert, so please don't come to me for tax things or accounting stuff, right? But when people are trying to navigate the different stages of their businesses, they're like, I'm really struggling here. I need your help, right? So seek expert advice. Don't be afraid to pay for expert advice because it's going to save you a lot of money in future, right? Another thing is leverage industry associations. There are multiple groups, associations that you can be a part of, and stay proactive. Ask questions, right? What are the thought leaders in your space saying? What are they saying are some of the changes that we should anticipate? Just stay on top of it, right? Another thing is competitive markets, right? When you're operating in a market where there's just a lot of players, right? There are a lot of companies, addressing the same problem. Like think of fintech, for example. A lot of there's so many companies doing business in fintech, and a lot of the fintech problems we have are still not solved, right? So it's still okay, right? Um, some of the obstacles I've highlighted here: market saturation, you know, a lot of innovative disruptors, people also struggling with brand recognition and awareness, and it's something that I saw a couple of people put out there, and what are the best ways to address that? Focus on a niche. If you look at the examples I gave, right, of some of my favorite companies, they are all focusing on niche areas. They're not trying to do everything all at once. They expand, like look at Revolut, Monzo, Starling. They expanded, and they started adding on services over time. But at that very beginning, focus on a niche area. Understand what your unique value proposition is, right? What is it that you bring to the table? What is your differentiating factor? How are you different from what the existing solution is, right? Also here I've said invest in your branding. I'm very big on how I brand myself. You can't just see me anywhere, and that's the truth. I don't just show up anywhere just anyhow, right? Brand yourself, brand your company, let it be consistent. I don't want to see something today and I'm seeing something entirely different. And I'm like, I remember I found that came up one day and put it on LinkedIn that she just realized that a lot of people don't know what her company does. And she's been running this company for 3 years. And I was like, these are the issues. I'm even happy that some people were confident enough to tell you that I really don't understand what you're doing. That is a branding mishap there. People need to be sure and clear on what exactly you are doing, what your company stands for, and be able to patronize you because they know what exactly you're doing, right? And another thing I've said here is monitor your competition. And that's where a platform like RFs comes in, where you can really understand, what your competition is doing, how you can stand out. You can't ignore them, right? You can't ignore your competition. Another challenge that people typically face are operational issues. So as the company grows, you're thinking, how do we grow? How do we expand? Getting the right talent, and also things like supply chain issues, right? But some of the best ways to address that, sorry, I'm just mindful. Okay, I have 3 more minutes. Some of the best ways to address that is to leverage the existing technology, the latest technology. I personally love all the disruption that AI is bringing. And I know that I think it was just yesterday, it was 2 days ago, for the global church, we had a session for AI and the church. There's a reason why the Elevation Church is prioritizing conversations around AI as well, because the church recognizes that this is something that is here to stay, and then it's important for church members to know how best to leverage it for good. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Just understanding how to use it for your benefit. Prioritize team culture. I tell founders a lot that people would always leave. It's not a problem when people work for you and say they want to move on to other things. Just to make sure that it's not because of the kind of culture you have in your company, right? Diversify your suppliers, your options. Don't limit yourself, right? Try and get ahead of a lot of these challenges that can come up. And another thing I've said here, further operational challenges are, low customer awareness, and we've spoken about this, high churn rates. So one thing is not having enough customers. Another thing is having customers, but they don't come back. You're not retaining those customers. And some of the best ways to do this is to build community engagement. Make sure that when people have issues, there's a great way for customer service to provide help to them. Deeply understand your target market. You have to understand them, what matters to them, what matters to their tastes, and just be excellent. I tell this to people all the time. I tell people that the people who are not Christians are doing things excellently. So why would you as a Christian do any less? The people who have not accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior, and they operate in a level of excellence that we're like, what is going on? So why would you as a Christian and as a child of God not step out every time in a spirit of excellence? It's not okay. It's not okay. And on Sunday, I remember Pastor Godman literally saying the first thing that God did was to create. He showed us his creative ability, and he did it excellently, to the point that when he was done, he said, yes, this is good and I can rest. And that's the thought that I operate in. I just can't do anything less. So please, please, please choose to be excellent at everything that you do. And I just put a couple of things here for us to take away. You guys are going to get the slides, so feel free to look through. These are just some bullet points just to encourage you on a daily basis on how to think about your company and your business. And then finally, oops, that's my 12 o'clock alarm. Finally, if you want to connect with me, these are all the ways to connect with me. From my website, the QR code is to my LinkedIn, to my Instagram. Literally, all of it is over here. But that's it from me. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. Before I go on, let me just see very quickly. So Aya Bird says, okay, so when I asked the question about what industries you're building businesses, she said Digital Boost offers free expert and mentoring advice. I imagine that's what her company does. And then Dell says mentoring underprivileged fatherless kids and single fathers co-parenting. Oh, these are very interesting companies. Well done to you both. Well done. Yes, and that's it from me. We're going to go into a Q&A session shortly, but right before we go into that, we have a founder here who attends the Elevation Church London as well. Aya Bird, she's on this call. And I just want her to share from her own perspective as a founder. I have very specific questions for her. Aya, like we discussed, you have 3 minutes just so that we can take questions from everyone on the call. But specifically, I want to know 3 things. Just tell us about your business. And I imagine it's Digital Boost, but let us if it's anything else. Tell us about your business. Also what you wish you knew earlier. So before you started this company, what do you wish someone had told you, right? And now that you're doing it, what is the advice you want to give people, right? So talk about your business, what you wish you knew earlier, and now also what you want to share with people going forward. So let's do that in 3 minutes. Aya, do you mind coming on?
Hi, everyone. So, by the way, my business is not Digital Boost. Digital Boost is
Okay.
a platform that that offers mentorship and yeah. So yeah.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I appreciate it. Okay, so your 3 minutes starts now. Go for it.
Yes. So my business name is called Bixby Tech, and it's a tech consulting digital transformation company, and we align and implement technology with these business goals. And something I wish I knew earlier was, rather than enforce my services on customers, I ask them what they need in their businesses and how much they are willing to part with in terms of the services they require. And what I have learned and I'm learning is to pivot. So what we started with originally is not what we are doing currently, and we are learning how to pivot based on customers' needs and all of that. Yeah, thank you.
Oh wow, thank you so much, Ari, for sharing. And I think I like how candid you were. A lot of people are not open to sharing, what may seem to the world as mistakes, right? So you know how at the beginning you said one of the first things you learned was, you know, maybe not just literally not creating a solution and expecting that the solution finds the problem, right? So really
Yeah,
talking to people and connecting with people to know what exactly are your pain points and how can
yeah,
I help, right? It's a very,
yeah,
very important aspect, and then it flows into what you then said about, now it's okay to pivot. It's okay to change your
mm,
mind, right? It's okay
yeah,
to learn that, maybe my initial thing wasn't quite working, but I know that I
yeah,
need to build a business that's successful, right? So I'm going to make some changes. That's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
yeah,
And I'll just advise, do a lot of research. There are a lot of companies that we all love today that have pivoted entirely, right?
yeah.
So please, there's nothing wrong with that. But thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you. Okay, guys, we are going into Q&A. Okay, I think Adlet has a question for you actually. And let's even take that. And I think now we've entered the Q&A part of it. So guys, please, if you want to unmute yourself, let me know. Just raise your hand. We would get to you. Or if you want to type in the chat as well, please feel free. Now it's, I've talked. But now we want to hear from you and just get your questions about really and truly what matters to you and what you're struggling with. So please feel free to ask questions. But Aya, do you want to take Adlet's question? When did you know it was the right time to pivot?
Well, I knew it was the right time to pivot when my business got to a point where there were leads, but the leads was not converting to sales. And that was based on the fact that we had this idea to be, the best technology firm, and yeah, when it's not then generating sales, yeah, you know that there is a problem there. So yeah, that's when we kind of had to re-strategize and learn to pivot. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Aya. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Okay, I'm going to start taking questions now, and I can see that a couple have started popping in. And just give me a second. Let me bring that back up. Okay, Ria says, what resources can one explore for supply chain in the UK for FMCG? Ria, I love this because it's very specific, right? I love this because it's very specific. And I would say start by running it on AI tools. The very first, layer to say, literally, and the beautiful thing about AI tools is it's conversational, right? So you're telling ChatGPT that I'm currently an early stage founder in the UK. I'm looking to launch a supply chain startup, specifically doing XYZ in the FMCG sector, right? What are some of the immediate resources that I need, right? That's just start from there, right? I like them because you then start to, it gives you a very base level, work to start with, and then you can build up from there. But another thing I'd like to add is, like I shared, you must find the thought leaders in this industry, right? Because they are, right? And I'm sure if I even check my LinkedIn, I'm sure I'm following one or two of them, because like I said, I'm very big on LinkedIn. So I currently have maybe 19,000 followers or something because it's just something I thoroughly enjoy, right? But spend time understanding the people who are leaders in this industry, right? And understand, the kind of resources they're sharing, right? It starts from there, right? But this doesn't happen without you doing your research. That's the truth, right? It's not the kind of work that anybody can do for you. It's literally the kind of work that you have to do for yourself. And take your time and just enjoy it. It's a business you want to build, right? I tell people a lot, don't do anything you're not excited about because you're very likely going to quit at some point, right? So do something you're thrilled about, you're excited about, and so that the research aspect can also be fun. I think Ria, I see you raising your hand. Let me know if you have any more questions or if, give me a second.
Ria, you can unmute.
Yeah, you can mute yourself, right? Okay. And please, let's see more questions coming, guys.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Just to clarify the question, so it's not like I want to start a startup in supply chain. So it's like there's already an existing product in another country, and I'm trying to just get it into the UK. So my question was, what are the resources that you can explore to be able to get those contacts and meet those supply chain people? Because usually these supply chain people are not on social media. They're like maybe companies that have been there for years or something like that. So how do you bring this thing in for fast moving consumer goods? What's the process like? I mean, I know that this might be an in-depth question that might be more specific in like a session with a specialist or something, but I don't mind like any answers I could get. Like, so how can you what does it look like to bring in products from other countries to sell in the UK and all of that?
Yeah. No, I hear you. And I think that one of the things I found for people in similar positions as yours is people leverage other people, right? So like you said, because it's not, it's a bit unique because you're coming from somewhere else and trying to expand into the UK, you have to be speaking to people who, have done something similar, right? And a good way that I found people who have done similar things is through that long list of communities that I mentioned, right? Where I like a lot of those groups because you can ask anything, you might be thinking this is so niche, but there's somebody who has literally done exactly what you're trying to do, right? But you wouldn't have found them except you're a part of the community. The UK itself thrives on community for founders. It's very big, very, very big, just because people recognize that you need other people to be able to move forward, right? So I would very, very much suggest that, I think I put the link to the presentation on the group chat. I would say start by looking through a lot of those communities, adding yourself, joining those communities. Many of them don't have a lot of barriers to becoming a part of them, right? I think some have very limited applications. A lot of them are WhatsApp communities, Slack communities. And when you join, introduce yourself and say, guys, this is the kind of thing I'm trying to do. Has anyone done something similar? I promise you, there's always someone who can answer your question, right? So that's the first thing that I would start from, where you need to join communities. Oh, Rhea says that was helpful. So I think she's saying is a wrap. Like, don't worry, I've gotten what I needed, right? So I'm glad that it was helpful. Communities are a big part of this job in this part of the world. So please embed yourself and ask as many questions as you can. Okay. Alrighty. Any other questions? Please, anyone feel free to unmute yourself. Feel free to ask. Also, please let me know if you've been able to access the presentation. I want to make sure. So if you've been able to access it, let me know as well. If this was helpful, please let me know. If it was not, like I said, please let me know. Happy to take more questions. Adelet, if there's anything else you need me to do, also please let me know.
Thank you so much. So for anyone that wants to ask a question verbally, you can just raise your hand and I'll give you the right to speak, but also drop any questions in the chat. But just speaking on a question for myself is building a business here and running or having a 9-to-5 is a huge hassle. With regards to having the right people on board, how would you approach that, or give someone advice to have someone that maybe not necessarily is full-time staff, but someone that is supporting the vision with you? How best would you approach that?
So Adela, if I get this correctly, are you saying how do you combine having a 9-to-5 and running a business? Is that
yes? And having more people to join what you're doing to drive that.
Let me take it from the last bit. I tell people that, and this is a very personal view. Before I go on adding people to what I'm doing, I really try to understand it myself and stretch myself. And this is, like I said, it's a very personal view. Just because I've also found that the more you add on people, like the work expands in terms of now you're managing people. Now you're talking to a lot of people before you make decisions. And people are extremely important. But the way I like to look at it first is fully understand what you're doing so that you can even sell the vision. And by selling the vision, two, you also know someone who cannot buy into the vision, right? So you must fully understand what you're doing in a way that you can sell it to other people. And it's easy to sift out the ones who don't get it, right? So that you're just not wasting your time with people who are going to waste your time, right? That's the first thing. So, and then the next bit is, I know a lot of people who are combining a 9-to-5 job with running a business. It is tough. But I find that more and more with the way the world is going, a lot of people recognize that, what, if I feel so strongly that there's more to me than this 9-to-5 job, then I need to start taking steps, right? And that's all it is. People are just taking steps. And something I like to say, people are just taking big bets on themselves, right? And when you're taking a big bet, it must be scary. I tell people, if you're not scared, then you're not doing anything worthwhile. You must feel afraid that this thing can actually fail and just fall flat in my face, right? So it must feel scary. You must feel like, oh my God, this is too big. I'm spiraling. I'm not sure I can manage it. You must have all those feelings because it means that you're doing something worthwhile, right? But I always say that we make time for what's important, and that's the truth, right? Even when it's tough, even when it's difficult, even when it's exhausting. And I'd like to give you a practical example. I was working till 3 a.m. this morning, and then I woke up with this annoying boil on my eye. It's been very hard, but I'm just like, you know what? It's fine. So that's why I wore this wig. I'm like, let it cover the boil on my face,
We can't see it, so it's fine.
Yeah, so I'm happy that you guys can see it. But I woke up this morning and I was in so much pain. But I'm like, God, I literally said to God, Holy Spirit, this is something I'm excited about doing. Just fix it. Fix this eye, even if it's for 2 hours. Let's just be okay. And to the glory of God, it has barely hurt. I think it's now that I've spoken about it, I now feel the pain again. But that's what I'm talking about. You have to build something that you're excited about, right? Something that even when it's not easy, you don't mind getting up to do it, right? And it takes time, it takes structure, So in terms of practical aspects, you want to make sure that, if you're working 9 to 5, and if you're one of those people who is privileged to actually end your job at 5, what are you doing from 6 to 8, right? It now means it's less time for other things and 2 hours on this thing that you want to build. That's it. It means the weekends, what are you doing for 1 hour every weekend? I'm telling you that it compounds. And when you see how much work you've done in 2 months, 3 months, you're just like, is it because I was literally just because I was deliberate about this thing, right? But it's baby steps. And when you take those baby steps, it compounds and it builds something honestly quite phenomenal, in my opinion. Yeah, Adlet, I hope that helps. I hope that answers.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, I reposted the link to my presentation because someone had it in the Q&A that can I please repost? So that's why I did that. But Ayo also wanted to add a practical way to reach out to people in FMCG. So Ayo, please feel free to share and unmute yourself.
Yes, hi. So a practical way that that someone actually advised me was go onto the website, find out who the leaders of the companies are. They always have a profile on LinkedIn. Find out who their PAs, their the staff that works in the organization, find them on LinkedIn, and then send them a message to introduce yourself and to introduce your brand, and say that, oh, you would like them to try. And yeah, that's practical.
So literally just go into people's faces.
Yeah.
Like that. And it's something I tell people all the time, you can't be afraid to message people because, messaging is private, except you're sending somebody weird things. And they can come out and expose you and say, this person, what is all this you are DMing me about? But if it's about the work you do, the work you're trying to do, don't even be afraid to literally shoot your shot. And I have a very practical example. I did an interview, like a session recently with someone who runs a tech podcast, and she put it out there yesterday. So she shared about the interview and everything, put up the video and all that. A couple of people have then seen it, and someone then added me on LinkedIn and dropped me a message to say, oh, hi, Faye, I loved it. It was inspiring. I appreciate what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. And then I saw it this morning. I woke up at like I said, I went to bed at 3 a.m. So I responded to her. I was like, oh, thank you so much. And she told me about a couple of things she was doing and wanted to know if I could help her with a bit more resources. So I responded to her and sent her a few more resources. And then she sent me a voice note on LinkedIn. Honestly, I wasn't sure I was going to listen to it, but the spirit just said, play it now. I'm like, what's the problem? Play the voice note. And she was almost crying on the phone, saying, I can't believe you responded to me. I'm so grateful. She said literally that now I know I need to keep talking to other people because clearly people respond to you, right? So there's nothing wrong with reaching out to people just because you have a question, right? It's very okay. Shoot your shots. I do it all the time. I'm in people's DMs every single time. If I think I can add value to you, I'm not holding back. The worst is that you will answer me and no one has died because nobody responded to them. You'll be okay, I promise, right? But don't hold back on literally pitching yourself to people. Thanks for sharing, Ayo. So checking if there are any more questions. Adlets, please feel free to take over as well if there are no more questions.
I have one more question personally as well.
Adlet, is it your session?
It's for me.
Please go for it.
Yeah, please, we'll be waiting for any questions. We'll be rounding up in the next, I would say, 5 minutes, so everyone can have their Saturday. But the question here is with regards to mentoring and mentorship. So sometimes you speak to founders, you speak to people, and they'll be like, okay, have a mentor. It's a great idea. While some people don't believe in that. I wanted to know what your take is and what would you advise someone that is looking to get a mentor in their field or respective product world and how best to go about it?
I mean, I'm very
Big question.
No, it's a very good one. I'm pro mentorship because mentorship continues to work for me. It works for me and it helps me work for other people, if that makes sense. So now I'm a mentor to a ton of people, but I started with having mentors myself. And honestly, I am very transparent about this. My mentor was the person who gave me the opportunity to work for the Vice President of Nigeria. honestly. And now, you know, when she started working in government 9 years ago, I had gotten like a couple of job opportunities lined up. I was interviewing, and she said to me, Ifeoluwa, it's not a lot of people who have access to people who can, to people who can bring them on board a position like this. And she was like, come and work for me. Right. And today, now she's the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment for Nigeria. Right. So I've benefited from mentorship just because people saw they saw my abilities, they saw that I was worth taking a chance on, and literally they were like, come on board, right? The same way I've spoken to people who I thought could be great mentors, and they literally outrightly told me no, right? But I just want to tell people that hearing no is not the end of the world. I literally have had people tell me, oh yeah, I think you're great, but yeah, I just can't take on anybody at this time, and it's fine. So I would always be pro mentoring, and also I mentor a lot of people, and personally, I try to add a lot of value to them every single day, just because people need guidance, people need direction, people need a sense of like a compass, and how better to learn than to learn from people who've done similar things and can help you get better, right? And Iabird is putting up a platform where you can find mentors. Like in terms of startups, that list of accelerator programs, a lot of them, like I said, offer mentoring, opportunities. And I mentor with about almost 10 startup accelerators across Europe and Africa and the Middle East. It's a lot of value, if you find the right person. So I would say spend time looking for the right person. Not everyone is a good match for you, but spend time looking for the person that is a good match for you. And when you find that person, it is a beautiful experience. Also, the last bit I'll add is, with mentoring, it's a two-way thing. You should never be looking to just take, be looking to give as well. Offer your help, offer, your services, just offer yourself that, I'm taking so much from you. How can I help? How can I be of value to you? Right. And that's the only way those kind of relationships are maintained. So I think, like I said, I'm very pro mentorship.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
No worries.
So we've got a few more minutes. Any other questions for Ife, Ayo, or just general comments about the session? We would really appreciate it as well.
It's amazing. There are 10 people on this call, but thank you guys so much for staying till the end. But please let me know if this was helpful. Please, please, please. I'd like to know if there's anything or you maybe thought you wanted to hear that you didn't hear, or just generally any feedback. Feel free to pop it in. Feel free to also send it to me as a private message if you don't want to put that in public. But yeah, feel free to drop it in. I think there's a Q&A. Yeah, I mean, okay, so Maureen put something in the let me just share. Sorry, if it's okay, can I reshare my screen? Because someone wants to know how best they can reach out to me. So let me just put this back on the screen. So Maureen, thanks for your message. Yes, feel free to, these are the best ways to connect with me. So the QR code is my LinkedIn. I'm very active on there, so feel free to reach out. There's also my email address if you want to reach out to me. Feel free to use any platform. I'd always respond. So Sukomi says, thank you. If they're very insightful. RC says, very helpful. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Let me see. Q&A. Adepis, I'm just making sure that I haven't missed anything.
No, all good from my end, I believe. Let me see.
Is there anything in the Q&A?
I've got two questions. Okay, I'm sorry I joined late. I have a startup I'm building in Nigeria and would like, okay.
Yeah, so that's why I put up this last slide.
That. Okay,
yeah,
that's fine. Amazing. Thank you everyone for joining. This is me again. I'm popping up. But yes, thank you so much for joining today's session. Hopefully we'll be running this at least once in every quarter to support people building businesses in the UK. As mentioned, please feel free to reach out to Ife. She'll definitely be loads of help to you. We'll be sending a follow-up email to everyone that registered and attended, just so that you have all the slides, all the information that we've spoken about today. And if you're not an Elevation Church member, please do make sure to attend or follow us on our social media handles at the Elevation Church. And yeah, hope to see you all soon. And thanks again for joining, and have a great, great Saturday.
Thank you so much, Adela. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely weekend.
Bye.
Bye.